Welcome back to Life is What We Make It. Before I ask you to trust me through these next 5 episodes, before we get into the pillars of identity, vision, people, mastery, and momentum, I need to tell you where those pillars came from. And they didn't come from a highlight reel, they came from a breakdown. And after my business exit 2016, I was stayed on board for a couple years, but in 2020, I got laid off during COVID and I completely lost it. Not a little bit either. I mean, really lost it because my identity was tied to what I did. And when that got stripped away, I didn't really, it didn't just hit my bank account. Um, it hit my identity. So, at the time I told people I was taking some time off and I was, but I wasn't really using that time to get better. I wasn't rebuilding. I wasn't sharpening my skills. I wasn't healing. I was lost. I was procrastinating. I was completely paralyzed in the thought of trying to build something brand new from scratch, and I didn't know even where to start. And if you've ever been there, you know exactly what I mean. When you've had momentum and you've had structure, you've had something to point to, and you're staring at a blank page. That blank page can really mess with you. I mean, because now the question isn't just what do I build next? The real question is, do I still have it in me to build it again? And I didn't know how to answer that at the time. And my mind was all over the place. So I numbed it. I drank, I not to party or celebrate, to shut my brain off, to come down, to get quiet, to stop feeling everything at once. And what's crazy is what feels like relief in that current moment quietly became a pattern. In 2018, there was a review in depression and anxiety. They found that in the national survey data, alcohol self-medication rates for people with anxiety disorders reached 1 in 5. 1 in 5. That was me. I wasn't resting. I wasn't medicating. I was escaping. Then I started my company. From the outside, that sounded like a comeback. Life is what we make it. I had this great idea, but I didn't know what the heck I was doing. In fact, I actually made a post at the time about everything I was going to do and what I was going to put out in social media, and I was afraid to do it. The truth is, I wasn't I was building while I was breaking. Then in 2021, I got hacked and I didn't know where the breach came from. I got locked out of everything. I think it was a ransomware attack, but I didn't know what to do. And that absolutely sent me over the edge. They got into my personal bank accounts, my personal accounts, and I would fix all my passwords and go to sleep. And the next morning they would all be changed again. And it was an emotional roller coaster. I had to let every single person go that I just had hired to help me start to put this together. All the contractors, and some friends, and I hit a point where I wasn't moving forward anymore. I was crawling mentally, emotionally, spiritually broken. People love to talk about entrepreneurship like it's freedom. They don't talk about the pressure. The US Bureau of Labor Statistics latest establishment survival tables show that by March 2025, just 51.4% of establishments that were opened 5 years earlier were still surviving. So yes, building something is hard, but trying to build when your mind is fried, when your confidence is shot and your identity is broken, that will break you. And to really understand why my mind went there, I have to go back. I was diagnosed with ADD when I was in middle school. And after high school, I started to get medicated. And for me, Adderall didn't feel like freedom. It made me feel weird, strung out. It made me anxious. I couldn't sleep. It messed with my confidence. It made me overthink what people thought about me. It made me feel different. It made me feel like I had to be on all the time. I couldn't ever really relax with people. I could never be present. Everything became transactional. Everything became business. We could be sitting there and you could be talking to me about your family, your kids, your life. In my head, I was already thinking about the next sale. I was thinking about the next move. I was thinking about the next dollar. That's not peace. That's that's not presence. That's survival dressed up like ambition. And I know I'm not the only one wired like that. The CDC reported that about 1 in 16 US adults had a current ADHD diagnosis in 2023. 1 in 16. So if that's you too, you're not crazy. You're not alone. For me, the cycle got pretty ugly. I couldn't sleep. So I would drink, come back down, and then I'd crash. And then I would wake up and I would do it all over again. And from the outside, it can still look like drive, right? I mean, I was still producing. I was working like a madman, but on the inside, it, it was dysfunction. And here's what nobody really says or tells you. When you tie your identity to output, you're not living like a person. You start living like a machine. A machine for money, a machine for results, for validation, for proving something. But machines don't love well. They don't listen well. They don't lead well, and eventually machines break. And that's what happened to me. My wife and I were going through counseling. We were struggling, and my marriage was hanging on by a thread. And I don't say that lightly. I wasn't confident. I wasn't producing yet. I wasn't showing up like a father, the person I needed to be. I wasn't showing up like the husband I needed to be. And underneath all of that was the real issue. I didn't know who I was. Not really. I mean, I had roles and hustle and ambition, but identity, I didn't have it. And the truth is, I wasn't just tired, I was ashamed. I'd always been the guy who figured things out. And now I couldn't even figure out myself. That's a dangerous place for a man to live. Because when your whole identity is built on being the strong one, the provider, the builder, the one who makes it happen, what do you do when that version of you collapses? Usually you hide it, you numb it. You tell people you're fine. That's what I did. But the truth was, I was losing the things that mattered most to me while I was trying to rebuild the things that didn't. My marriage was hanging by a thread. My confidence was gone. My business wasn't producing yet. I was losing money everywhere. And I had this moment where I knew if nothing changed, I was going to destroy the life that I cared so much about. Not because I was evil or because I didn't love my family. I wasn't a bad guy. I'm not a bad guy. I was a lost guy. And when a man loses his identity, everything around him starts breaking. That's when everything changed. I went back to church. Not for appearances, not because it sounded good, but I wanted to go back and I needed that piece of my life together again. It was missing. So I went back to church. I needed God. I needed the truth. I needed better people around me. I needed relationships, real relationships. I needed men in my life who weren't feeding my ego. I needed men that would help me become the man that I was supposed to be. And God used that. He used church. He used people and community. And he used a stranger, honestly. He didn't change my life through a stage or a clip or a viral video or anything like that. He did it through conversation with a stranger. That stranger was Martin Rowan. Martin came into my life at the right time. He inspired me. My CEO coach, Cameron Harold, had introduced me to Martin randomly on a coaching call, and we met for lunch one day. He inspired me. He was one of those people that, you instantly could feel their aura as you met him. He was just emitting this positive energy, and it was inspiring. He ended up telling me a story about how he found his identity and some of the things that he had done, and he led me to this book by Jamie Winship. It's called Living Fearless. That book gave me language to what God was already doing in me. It exposed kind of the lie that my worth came from what I produced, and um, the lie that fear was normal, that, you know, if I wasn't winning, I was nothing, and the lie that hustle was going to save me. Somewhere in that process, for the first time in my life, I found my identity in the eyes of God. And when those lies started dying, I finally started to live a little bit. And that's where these five pillars came from, not from theory or anything like that. They came from fire. Identity is where everything begins, because if we don't know who we are, we can build our whole entire life on fear. Vision is because once I started understanding who I was, I had to get really clear on where I was going and what I was actually called to do. And I couldn't do that by myself. I needed the people, because people around you will either keep you trapped in old patterns, they'll feed your excuses, or they'll call out the person that you're supposed to be becoming. They'll be honest and transparent with you and tell you when you need to step up. Mastery is because healing isn't just emotional. You need to have some discipline to it. Anything. You have focus, stewardship, and skill. Momentum, because real change usually isn't dramatic. It's daily, and it takes mastering those skills on a regular basis, one choice at a time. Sometimes not even walking, sometimes crawling, but still moving. Those things compound. So if you're listening right now, and from the outside, maybe you look fine, but inside you're lost, or you're broken. Maybe you can make money, but you can't make peace with yourself, or you're showing up in public and drowning in private. I know that man. I was that man. Hear me clearly. Your breakdown, my breakdown, it doesn't have to be the end. Sometimes it's the first honest thing that happens in a long time. Sometimes God lets the version of us that's built on fear or ego fall apart completely, so he can build us back up and show us the way. That's what happened to me. My life didn't change when my circumstances changed. My life changed when my actual identity changed. That's why I started this podcast, not to sound smart, not to act like I got it all figured out, because God knows I don't. And I'm just trying to get a little better every single day. But I started it because I know what it's like to be successful on paper and lost completely in my personal life. I know what it's like to be wired, driven, and restless and empty inside. And I know what it feels like when God starts putting things back together, when he starts to align things in your life, and things actually start to work out the way they're supposed to. So over the next 5 episodes, I'm going to dig deep on the 5 pillars that rebuilt me: identity, vision, people, mastery, and momentum. And we're starting with identity. Because when you know who you are, fear loses leverage. Other people's opinions lose leverage. Money loses leverage. Your past loses leverage. And you stop building just to prove something. You start building from conviction. That's where we're headed. But before we go there, I wanted you to know the truth about me. Not the polished version, the real version. The one where I lost myself. The one where I almost lost my marriage. The one where I was drinking to shut my brain off. Where I wasn't walking. Where I was crawling. The one where God met me in the wreckage. And the one where everything started changing the moment I finally understood who I was. This is life is what we make it. And I'll see you in episode 3.